All right. Welcome to Belonging Songs. It's the podcast that brings you a brand new original song with each episode, then talks about the theme of that song and the processes that went into writing and recording it, and the changes we make along the way. I am your host, Wade Dana, and with me today in the studio is my good buddy, Chad Kelton.
Hello.
So, just Chad today.
I know, it's weird. It's different.
Yeah. Brad's sick. It's Friday night, and this is kind of an impromptu thing, and Patrick is always doing something on Friday night, so I didn't even bother contacting him. But as we had said when we started with these instrumental redos, that some of them would just be Chad and I, and here we are. So this is the second one in this series. This is also a very early song that we wrote together. This is a long one, so when we listen to the demo, I will again cut it down for you listeners because it's a mangly old cassette demo that we don't need to subject you to, and you will end up hearing the completed song in a much higher quality later on in the episode. And who knows, maybe Patrick and Brad will show up later as we progress through this, because we're still working on this. This is one that we started already redoing. Chad's put his drums to it. I think we've got all our parts to it. I just have to thicken up some parts and mix it still. We're recording now on March 4th. This is going to come out in a couple weeks. So this song is called All Day Long I Live in a Hole. And like we had mentioned before, the titles don't really mean anything, but I think that our friend Bob named this song.
It's very possible, very
Or
possible.
at least I know that if I asked him, he would say yes. I said I had a story about this song right before we started recording. You said, "Is it about Bob?" And I said, yes. So what made you think that?
I'm probably on the same page
Okay,
as
cool.
you are, that it was in some way Bob. It would have happened in a barn. It would have happened somewhere else in a basement, somewhere where we were playing at some point. Bob was around for a lot of the conception of these old songs, too. Bob was definitely present with a lot of other characters, so it's fitting.
Yeah, so I'll tell that story after we listen to the demo. This song we probably wrote, another one where we probably wrote in my mom's basement back when we were wee lads, right around 17, 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
The first one that we redid, Bitch Factor 4, that was the first I'm In Ya song. I know. I don't think this was the second I'm In Ya song. I just think it was in the group of the early ones. Because I know some of the songs have carryover parts from our like previous project where we were in called Abhor, which was noise basically. And some songs had parts, and some of those ended up spilling over into like being parts of these I'm In Ya songs. But not this one. I think this one was
a little later, but not much. This was probably one of our first attempts to write, something a little more a solid.
Yeah.
So I could see that. It's probably one of the first where it got a silly title.
Yeah. Yep. So, like I said, this is a really long song. It has a really long intro. But I think for you listeners, I'll just play you some of the meat of this. Chad and I are going to listen to the demo right now just to kickstart our memories, and then we'll be back to talk about it. So here, let's give it a little taste.
I'm pretty sure this was one of the first ones that we actually stuck an intro in.
Like, tried to think about a little more.
More of a beginning, end, and middle.
I do know that out of all the cassette recordings we have, I have very few full version recordings of this because I think it's so long that we would screw it up quite often.
Well, I wouldn't doubt it.
So I noticed there's a few versions on those cassette demos where I've spliced in movie samples just because we would screw up a part, and then so I would fix it by throwing in the Big Lebowski samples or other movies or weird stuff.
Part of what we were listening to.
Yeah.
Doing
or watching. Doing. Sounds like you had your double bass pedal.
I did. I actually got that out the other day. Well, it's been sitting. And then I thought about putting it back on. I put it away for a long time just because I wanted to concentrate on one.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, this seems really slow compared to...
It does. But it's the same tempo that we started with. I think it's just when we go to that quicker part, whatever, I think we just shifted tempo super.
Right.
That's how we started.
That China boy. That is a cool sound. You got to get another one of those. So, a couple takeaways from that, now that we've listened, that we were kind of talking about through there. I don't know how I'll edit this, but things I noticed that we had mentioned. Chad's rocking a double bass pedal there, which there was a short period of time where you introduced that and played with it. You didn't use it for very long, but you clearly had it hooked up during this recording. And like I mentioned when we were listening to this is from the very first tape recording collection that we have.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bunch of these old iMinia cassettes. We would go through a couple practices, and then I would edit them like all together into a tape, like a mixtape with all the songs. And this is from the very first one. So volume 1 is what it was called. This would have been 1997, 98. But yeah, I noticed your double bass pedal and your China cymbal, which is a really cool sound. And we were talking while we were listening to that, like, I think you should get another one because that sounds really cool.
It's a different sound, and there's kind of the rub whether to buy one or not. I mean, obviously with disposable income you would, but just because how often... Well, actually, you know what? Forget the price. Real estate on your drum kit.
Yeah.
You know,
because it's such a specific... And listeners, I'll try to find a sample of one, but it is basically the very... Like, it has a very specific sound.
Yeah.
You haven't had one in so long that it's just like it sticks out now to listen to it. I'm like, oh, it's really cool, like nostalgic for me to listen to and hear it.
Right. No, none of our recent planes.
No.
I've used it. I've misplaced it. I'm not sure where it is.
It's lost.
It is lost. I mean, it's here. It's going to turn up one of these days. I might have loaned it to somebody that kind of is in the back of my head.
Listeners, if Chad has loaned you a China cymbal, please return it to him.
Give it back. But no, I would definitely be interested in having one. But like I said, actually, the more concerning would be the real estate on the drum set because I don't want a Neil Peart setup. You know?
Right,
I don't,
yeah. You know, the
I
whole
stay
rotating.
basic. I stay basic.
Another thing, which I don't know if you were hitting it in this song or if it's just the way it was recording, but Chad used to have what's called rototoms, which are basically, are they for like marching bands mostly?
Well, they're set up that way, yes. They're made for a rock or a set kit, but they're adjustable.
Yeah, so what you do is you turn it like a steering wheel, and when you do that, it changes the pitch of it, so it's like boop, 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 boop.
Correct.
Boop, boop.
But they're made to mock or emulate the sound of quads from a marching band. You are correct on that.
So Chad used to basically set those behind him on the ground, and when he would be playing, he would just like reach down and hit those sometimes, and they have a very specific cool sound. It sounded like maybe you hit them a couple times in there, but
yeah, different songs. I know I used them. This one,
maybe not.
Not
maybe
so
it was just
much.
the regular toms.
I was more on the cymbal work.
Yeah,
you know, in the intros on these.
But I'm sure we'll come across those in later ones. Yeah,
highlight them.
Anything else stick out to you? We were talking as we were listening there about how interesting it is now to listen to them and just hear the like really bad tempo fluctuations because we were just learning not only how to play these songs we had just written, but like how to play in general. This is very early in my guitar playing career at all. Like these are some of the first things I played. So yeah, some of the tempo issues were pretty bad back then, but
we were more concerned about having those parts.
Yeah.
And I think playing those parts that we didn't care that the tempos didn't match up at that point. So yeah, we got so familiar with those parts and just knew what they were in our heads that we would just go and jump part to part.
I think I was always like, well, I want to make it as weird as possible back then. It's not something we thought about, or I thought about. I'm sure you had that, like, hey, we need to keep this tempo under control, but me back then was just like, let's make this all as weird as possible And I think that's how some of those tempo issues came about. Mostly my fault, probably.
I wouldn't say that. I was still pretty, and I was usually right on board with some of the stuff that you want to do with the songs. I didn't want anything to be vanilla either. I was definitely looking to change, and that's what we did, especially with the songs being instrumental. I don't, we continued that trend for a while.
Oh, we actually continued to continue the trend. We were just talking the last time we played over at Chad's house. We've got this group of songs we've been playing for, I don't know, it's been a couple years now. It's been a few years. I think everything in the past 3 or 4 years, I equate everything to just being a year. Shanna's always like, well, we haven't seen these people. We should go hang out. I'm like, well, we just saw them like last year. She's like, that was like 3 years ago. But I think maybe a lot of people are dealing with that sort of thing over the past few years. But
time warp.
Where was I going with that? Oh, so we've been playing this new group of songs, and they're all instrumental because it's just me, you, Brad, and our friend Matt getting together on Friday nights, once in a while. And we've got, I don't know, 12.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Some songs, like 12 to 15 songs now.
We're getting there.
10 to 15, something like that. But last time we were there, we're like, what are these? Are these just new I'm In Ya songs?
Right.
And they probably are. They might as well be. I think we're probably cherry pick a couple of them, and maybe they'll get lyrics and turn into Skeleton Nun songs or whatever. Not that it even matters, because it's just always us playing together, so they doesn't even need names. But they do fit into the I'm In Ya category of songs that we've had. So maybe that's going to be the last collection after
and
we
I
get
never
done with
thought
all these.
of that before like that. It's almost like a filing system.
Yeah.
But I like it. As we write the songs, we could decide what band and what side project they would go to. I like that. I like it.
So I had mentioned our friend Bob earlier, and that I had a story that relates to these songs because, like we had mentioned in the first, we may run out of things to talk about in these redo episodes because how many times, because I mentioned that this is just another song we wrote in my mom's basement. So the song title, All Day Long I Live in a Hole, reminded me of our friend Bob because I think he named it. And I also have a funny story about him. At one of our shows, Bob, we were just talking about this. He always has wanted to be involved. So he's a friend of ours who's very high energy and for years has just really wanted to be involved with the band stuff. He always said he was going to drive the bus when we toured. Obviously, we've never done that.
And he loved our music.
Yeah, so he's always been a big supporter. But there was a show we were going to play at Mac's Bar in Lansing. Rest in peace. One of the great dive bars in the area, which was sadly closed down because of COVID. So casualty of COVID. So this would have been, I don't know, 20 years ago, whatever, 15, 20 years ago, we were going to play. And we finally, I don't even remember what it was, but Bob was going to be involved. We were like, okay, we got the job for you.
Involved.
You're going to come up on stage, we're going to have you do this thing. And he was pumped, so pumped that, he showed up early with us, helped us load everything. And, we have to show up hours early before the show's going to start. And we're loading our stuff in. And he's pumped and he's high energy. And we get all loaded in. We're setting up. And he proceeds to start talking to the bartender, having drinks. And like I said, we've got hours to go.
It's a long time.
And he used those hours to have some drinks, be real intense. At some point, I looked over and he's behind the bar carrying stuff. He's helping there. He's like, I'm going in the basement. Didn't even know there was a basement there. So he ended up wearing his welcome out behind the bar with the bartenders, had too much to drink, ends up throwing up on the bar, behind the bar, basically getting kicked out before the show even starts. But the kicker is, it's the dead of winter.
Mm-hmm.
And the show hasn't
These people
started.
had a heart.
So yeah, they took pity on him and didn't want to make him sit out in a car in the middle of winter for 4 hours, 5 hours. So
there was a restaurant across the street.
Yeah, but he had to sit
on
a bag, 3 bags of salt, right in the doorway, and like a kindergartner timeout. All right, you can stay in here, but you have to sit on this bag of salt.
Probably only 50 feet away from the stage.
Well, it was right where the front door was, so that was the bathrooms were in between, which were the grossest bathrooms in Michigan for sure.
Decorated.
But yeah, so anybody coming in and out was this big cold gust and Poor kid had to sit there on a few bags of salt. Missed out on his big chance to be on stage with us. So that's my story relating to this song. A good memory that I always, occasionally think about when I think of this song. So, yeah, at this point, unless you have anything else you want to say about the song,
No,
we are going to continue working on it. Like I said, Chad's already recorded drums to it. I think we went through our saga of trying. This was in the first group.
Mm-hmm.
We recorded 3 songs. The first Bitch Factor 4, this one, and another one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I mentioned on like the 4th time we tried to record drums in this group when I forgot to record the overheads after we got the takes.
Was there an adjustment made?
Well, we talked about this in that first redo episode where we spent like 2 days trying to dial in sounds. You came over, we recorded, then we decided we'd record again, and then we still didn't get it, so we did it a 3rd day, whatever. But remember, you came back on a Sunday, and we're like, okay, we're finally going to get these after all that stuff. Because I think we only got the first one that one day.
Yeah.
And we left things set up, and I think you came back on a Sunday.
Or was it the same? No, I think it was the same night. I think we finally got the one done, moved on to the second one, and we did it, 3 or 4 times and thought we had it. And
but remember,
I was done. I was like, I didn't going
record
home.
The overheads were not recording because
right.
they were running through a compressor that I have set up in my gear rack, and it was turned off. So we didn't get it. So maybe that's what caused you to have to come back that next Sunday, because you were spent and we still hadn't got them. So I don't think I mentioned that before. But we have got the drums. I've done my main guitars. Matt's come over, put the bass down. Now I'm going to finish filling it out and mix it. So when we come back, we'll have a full version for you listeners to hear. And then we'll get out of here. So we're going to jump to the future, and we'll see you in a bit. Set course.
To the future!
Okay, we're back. Talk about All Day Long I Live in a Hole, the second of our I'm In Your Redo songs. Just me and Chad here again.
Hello.
So Brad is out of town, and Patrick is celebrating his 25th birthday. What did we do? Last time we listened to the demo. Since then, I've thickened up the guitars, pretty much just really added like one backing rhythm track just to thicken stuff up, kind of like I did with the first one. And that's all I'm really going to be doing for these, because I'll tell you what, I was playing this, setting my guitar up and listening through, and this is a good example of a song with plenty of room for some noodling.
Yeah,
and I was doing that when I was sitting here playing around, and it would be really cool. But that's not what we did, and that's not really what this project is. This is more about capturing what we did, how we wrote them. But yeah, this one definitely could benefit from some lead guitar and stuff, but
Wait another 15 years and then you can remix it again.
right. And we probably should do some like guest appearances on some of these, like maybe have Brad, because he did play with us a little bit. I don't know if Brad ever even played out with a show with us.
Not
as
till
I'm in ya.
Lunds. I don't think till Lunds.
Yeah, not until that. So, but maybe some guest appearance. I have talked to our friend Todd, who played keyboard in this group, and probably will be sending these to him. He said he does want to get in on it. So maybe like when they are all released, there'll be his keyboards on them. I don't know. Logistically, trying to wrangle just the people here in Michigan is tough for me. And Todd lives across the country, but we'll figure it out.
He's a great keyboard player.
Yeah. So this song is done. We should listen to it and then talk a little bit about the mix and stuff. And then we'll get out of here. So here we go. What do you think?
I think it sounds good. I can tell, especially, I guess I would call it the chorus because, without vocals, it's hard to say that, but it does sound way thick. You did some harmonies.
I embellished where I could, trying not to overstep into like a new part.
Right.
So yeah, thickening up the dun 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 dun. The main guitar was, my lead 2 guitar through my Music Man.
Right.
And those extra guitars, which is just 2 tracks playing the same thing, is my SG through my little Marshall down there. They're playing the same parts. Sometimes I'll play it an octave up, just to give it a little more interest.
Right. Sounded good. On the drum tracks, did you have to go back and do any major fixes? I thought I remembered kind of a screw up or a flub towards the end, but it sounded like you fixed it. But I thought there was a hiccup in there.
Well, I had to do a drum comp because we did like multiple takes, I think. So I think this might have been like a splice of a couple different takes.
Probably. Okay.
So any flub, I would have just went to a whole different take and like, okay, let me grab
Glued
this.
it in.
Yeah, kind of use that. So I think this one might have been 2 separate takes, maybe 3, because we had the intro, I think we did
in a chunk.
And then we started concentrating on the main part of the song. And then I think maybe I've spliced 2 takes together of that to create the master take. And then I go in and just listen to just the drums for tempo variations and stuff, because we're not using click tracks. So if I'm like, oh, this section is rushing a little, I'll just kind of grab it and slide it over a little. But because we're not using a click track, I don't have much of a reference. I just have to listen. And if I hear something that's off, I'll just try and slide it over a little.
We definitely consciously slowed down to some of those parts that we used to just pedal to the metal and go.
Yeah.
So at least we controlled them a little more and kept that tempo going through, and they matched.
It's funny listening to our old cassette demos how fast we're playing everything. You can tell in the demos I'll miss parts because I just can't keep up, but I don't know why we used to do that, but I guess we're just young and needed to get it out.
I guess.
But yeah, Chad had mentioned while we were listening to that intro, how that was something that could fluctuate quite a bit when we used to play it in the past. And we're trying to be more conscious of keeping the tempo at a reasonable pace where it should be, really.
Without using the click track, because of all the changes that we make in these songs, especially the older ones.
Yep.
It's too hard to try to match a click with recording it.
Yeah.
We found that out the hard way. Yeah.
Another thing I had to do on this, aside from thickening up the guitars, just because for a recorded version, it just wouldn't sound as badass
right
with just the single guitar.
No, absolutely.
I also did a lot of panning. So each section kind of has its own guitar panning. So just to add interest throughout the song, so it changes a little, just so everything's not so static in the mix. So like in that part was like dun 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 dun. The guitars kind of all come to the middle to like really focus on that part, and then when we get the bigger, like the chorus, dun 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 dun, those extra guitars pan out wider, just to kind of give it more interest throughout.
I did notice the reverse drums panning from right to left. The reverse orientation.
Stage
orient perspective. That was the word I was looking for.
Yeah, pretty much all the songs we've been recording on the console here
have been doing that lately.
And it's not because of the console, it's because of this microphone setup that we're using now. Just seems to sound better that way. I did end up reinforcing the toms and using samples. I don't do that on every song. It depends on the song, but these iMenu songs, like, you really want to hear all your drums nice and clear. And that's another thing I do. Like, you have a lot of little like frills and accents throughout, and I will go through, like, anytime you're like like a little fill, I like boost the volume up a little bit on the overheads or that individual drum mic just to let that poke out even a little more, just to add interest to the whole thing.
I thought Phil sounded good. I thought the overall drum sound we're doing well on.
I used samples for the toms, which means I cut out the microphones that we had here. They do add interest in a certain way. So I'm working on one of Brad's new songs that'll be coming out next week. In that particular song, I left all the bleed in because it just fit the vibe of the song. These, because you want to really hear everything more clear, like there's already a lot going on with all the guitar distortion.
It would get too muddy.
And I want to hear your drum hits like very clear. So I cut those mics out after I put the samples in. So there's a nice clean sample every time you hit a tom. And that allows me to cut the rest of the stuff out. Now, I could go in and just edit the track, but you would still hear every time you hit a tom, you'd still hear like all of a sudden the rest of the kit would jump in.
Gate noise.
And it'd be kind of weird. So it's just cleaner to trigger a sample and then cut those mics out. You're still hearing them in the overheads.
Right.
Like the tom mics are almost just for reinforcement anyway, because they really do come through in the overheads. So we're getting the natural sound there, but also using those samples to really, like when you do a fill, I can like really pinpoint it in the mix and it's nice and clean. So did that. I think I also reinforced the kick and snare on this mix with samples, but mixed them down. So I still have the microphone that we recorded, but then also blended it with a sample just to give it more, punch. So the guitars, I recorded direct to your drum performance and then reamped them. And at first, I was using that old Big Muff pedal, that Russian Big Muff pedal. Actually, you got me that pedal.
I did, from a girl that worked at a local party store.
Yep.
I forget why she gave it to me, but she did.
I know you got a screaming deal on it, and I'll never get rid of it. But that thing is gnarly.
It is vintage. You see it used quite often still. They've replicated it, but this is one of the original ones.
Yeah, but the sound is pretty gnarly, and I mean, that's what I used to use a lot in all these songs. But I reamped it out through that pedal in my Music Man amp and put it back in the mix. And actually, that's what Matt recorded to. But as I got into mix it, I was like, man, this is just really, really gnarly. Just very low end growl in those parts. That section where we're going really fast, like dun, 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 dun. You couldn't even hear the notes. It was just like all like a blend of just noise. So I was like, well, this isn't really going to work. So I ended up reamping it again with the same setup that I used for the first song that we did, the Bitch Factor 4. So it's my Brownies and Cream Satori Sonics pedal and my regular just overdrive that I use, which is my Ad Rock Old Yeller. But I ended up using the Big Muff track too. What I did, which is kind of interesting. So I had two microphones on the amp, FM57 and a Cascade Fathead ribbon mic. I've just found that is a good combo for a good sound. So for the main guitar track in this song, see if I can explain this without being super confusing. So on the track that I recorded with the Big Muff, I ended up using the SM57 mic. And then on the other reamped version with the other fuzz pedal and the overdrive, I ended up using the ribbon mic for that because they're the same performance, just being reamped twice.
And they'll capture completely different.
The exact same thing.
But it sounds completely different.
Yeah. So I ended up using one mic from each version and blending that together for the ultimate sound, which I've never done before, and ended up having a cool, unique sound. I hope that made sense because I think I was on the verge of confusing myself there. But during the intro of that, I really had to create some ambience because that's a long, quiet intro. And what I did was the microphone setup we just talked about, is the main guitar, one microphone from each reamp. And then I brought in the other two microphones that I wasn't using and panned those wide and brought them way down in the mix and then put some really heavy reverb, a little bit of delays on them. So in that beginning part, those are the guitars you hear out to the side that are kind of affecting and just add some ambience to that intro. So that's really all my notes on the mix. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, sounds good.
Now, Chad and I were here last weekend. That's when we did the first half of this episode. And after we recorded, we were listening through our old cassette demos to be like, okay, well, what songs should we try and tackle next? And we ended up finding a thing that we totally forgot existed, which is a bridge between this song and the previous one that we recorded, Bitch Factor 4. And it was something we used to play all the time. And it's this little connecting piece that we would often put in between these two songs. So we're actually going to record that tonight.
Hopefully.
And it's funny that we just totally forgot it existed. But I think it's worth capturing since we're doing this project. So when we construct this as an album, we'll have it there. Yeah, and our friend Matt is coming over tonight too. We're going to work on the next one, and which will be coming out in, I don't know, a few weeks.
It's good to get these out.
Yeah. So I think that's it. Unless you have anything else you want to say about this one?
We're going to keep going. We're going to...
Yep. I tried to coax our friend Matt into giving us his reaction site, but he's not comfortable being on a microphone and talking to people, so which is understandable. But
he has a great voice.
He does. He would have the best podcasting voice of all of us. Hey there, BSers. I'm busting into this episode because that bridge we were just talking about, it's finished. So Chad and I were recording this revisit for this episode Friday night, and after we finished, we recorded the drums for this piece that we just mentioned. Our friend Matt came over, recorded the bass to this and another song. And then the following day, Saturday, I was able to edit the drums and the bass and record my guitar parts. And today, which is Sunday for me, I've been working on mixing this so I can get it into this episode, because this is really the best episode to highlight it because it connects to this song that we just listened to. So I'm fighting to get this done because the episode's coming out in just a few hours. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play this bridge piece for you now. Then we're going to go back into the end of the episode, and if you choose to stick around after the end theme song, I'm going to play the 3-piece trifecta in its entirety. So just like we used to play it back in the day as one big piece. This is something we used to do. We had multiple songs that we had connecting tissue for, to seamlessly play them back to back. We actually do have a whole piece that we dubbed the show that has like 4 or 5 of our songs kind of all strung together with extra instrumentation and stuff, which we'll get to eventually. So yeah, I'm going to play this for you now, and then you get the whole piece after the theme song. All right, so we're going to get out of here. As always, you can check out all these songs on our website, belongingsongs.com. Send us a message, bs@belongingsongs.com. Check out the merch, check out all that stuff. All the links in the episode description to find my music, Brad's music. There's a link to a playlist that has all the songs from all the seasons, so please check that out. Next week, we're coming back with a full episode featuring a brand new song from Brad. I think it's his first, brand new song of the season, because his past 2 songs have been kind of rehabs. So, yeah, hope to see you next week. We're going to get out of here now. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, that's good. Boom, done. Next.